What's going on, guys? Coach Gaglione here. This is another edition of the Powerlifting for the People podcast. I'm your host, Coach Gags, and we got Dave Stensland on the line today. How you doing?
Good, good, good. Glad to be here.
Awesome. So I wanted to, get you on here. We're going to talk about a lot of the professional meets you're doing. You know, the Lift Hard, Live Easy Classic with Massonomics, a lot of great stuff. So, but before we
Mhm.
kind of dive into the events that you've been running, just want to hear a little bit more about who you are and what you got going on right now.
Yeah, I started running meets initially under USPA a few years back. Um, we were doing that, and then when everyone kind of started drifting off to WRPF,
Yeah.
we went a different route, and we actually ran meets under XPC for a while
Yeah, I do. I do.
before.
I do remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and then we switched over to WPPL within like the last, oh, it's probably been since last July. So since the last Massonomics meet, yeah. So
Very cool. Yeah, I did actually. I did remember that, and so I remember seeing. Anyways, that the first Lift Hard, Live Easy was under
yeah,
XP.
the very first Lift Hard Lift Easy was under XPC, yeah.
Yeah, so I do remember. So because I've been kind of following those guys for a while. And anyways,
Okay.
um, yeah, a lot of mutual friends. So in terms of like, I guess your own like involvement in lifting, did you kind of get involved like early on? Were you kind of involved in athletics? Like, how did you kind of get like in this? Like, how did you get exposed to the barbell?
Well,
Wait.
I got involved into powerlifting probably pretty late compared to most people. I mean, I always lifted heavy, for sports, high school football and stuff like that, and even through college. And then it wasn't till maybe 2016, some guys from a gym went to there was a powerlifting meet going on, and I want to say Stan Efferding and like Mike O'Hearn were in town for it, like as the guests or something. And so I went and watched, and I'm kind of paying attention to the guys who were lifting it, and I'm like, oh, I'm kind of in the ballpark of what these guys are doing. I could do this. I'm already squatting, I'm benching and deadlifting. Why not? And so after the meet, I reached out to like the referees, and I'm like, hey, when's the next meet? How can I get involved, kind of thing. And the weird thing was, no one could tell me anything. They're like, "Oh, you got to talk to him. You got to talk to him." And I'm just like,
Hmm,
"Do you have a website or something?" And at the time, it was the APF that was pretty much the only game in town up here,
interesting.
and they weren't very social media, um, on top of things. So I ended up asking and asking multiple people to try and find out about this next meet, and all I knew was it was going to be at the high school in town. So I knew the principal because I actually used to be in a band with him in high school. So I reached out to him, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I know who's doing that." So after tracking people down, I was finally able to get like a paper registration.
I was gonna. And then what do you remember? Like what year this was? I'm just kind of curious. Like what? Like
It was probably
2000.
2017, I want to say,
Okay,
summer of
so yeah,
2017.
that's so funny because so that's what sometimes just a quick aside and I'll let you continue. Like
Mhm.
sometimes, so we always just say like so I did my first meet in 2006, so I kind of got in
Yeah.
kind of early. I did my first meet at 18. And yeah, we had so we always would say things got serious like when you sent the check in. It was
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
because now like everything is online, jot forms, lifting cast, all this.
Mhm.
People like, what are you talking about? Like, just so I just think it's kind of funny. And there are like some people. So I have my buddy Jamie Mata. So in like places like Maine and New Hampshire,
Mhm.
there are like regions that will still like get their paper
Okay.
registration. So I just kind of chuckle sometimes since when you talk about like I had West Side Barbell VHS tapes. Just
Mhm.
that was our like resource. But anyways, you can kind of continue the story. I just thought that was like kind of funny that you had to mail the
Yeah, and it took forever to finally like get someone to track down that could like email me the form. And so finally, once I did, I signed up, and I don't know anything at this point. I'm looking at YouTube videos of the rules for APF and all that kind of stuff, and um, I do my first meet. Uh, let's see here. I end up winning the 220 class. I think I squatted like 517 and like 320, 24 something bench, and deadlift maybe like, like 520 something. So, but once I did it though, I definitely, I got hooked. Um, and then eventually I kind of looked around at other resources and events that were going on. And, you know, like someone who's new and excited, I'm looking for meets and hopping in where,
Yeah.
like boom, 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 you know, and that day we started doing USPA meets that were coming up here. So
Yeah, around that time frame, I would say like that was probably, uh, if not, I mean, it still is like a very big fed, but that was definitely kind of like I'd say the most popular federation. I'd say in that time frame
yeah,
for sure.
yeah, yeah, yeah. They
Uh,
seem to be. They were at least in every state at that point. It looked like,
yeah,
you
and then
know.
like and then we kind of now there's like I feel like there's a new federation every year. But yeah, to your point, I do think it's good to. So, at what point did you say like I really like this for myself? This is something I enjoyed. Then like was there like a moment where you're like I'd like to like do something in my area? Was there like a lack of meets in your
Um,
like what kind of
it,
caused you
it
to?
wasn't so much lack of meets because I mean that like USPA would do a meet on the western side of the state, and then APF would do theirs in the summer. So I
And
mean,
you
there was a pretty good balance for the lifters that were up here, two a year kind of thing. And the USPA people were actually out of Montana, and so they just needed help, like, hey, if we come to North Dakota to do meets, we'd like to have some people
sure.
on the ground, obviously, to help out. So I ended up becoming a referee. And then shortly after that, they stepped away. This was before like the whole big split thing, but they stepped
Sure.
away for different reasons beforehand. And then one day I get a call from Steve with USPA, and he's just like,
Um,
"So I heard that you're the guy to talk to about running meets in North Dakota." And I'm like, I'm like, who's telling you this? Because I'm like, I don't have a gym. I don't know what you're talking about. I just became a ref, literally. So,
yeah.
and so we talked, and I was just like, he was kind of basically wanting to know if I could organize and like help set up events, and they would find meet directors that would come up and run them and do that kind of thing. So I initially started by just kind of um, getting together with them and just kind of planning with meet directors. Like Al Alvarado, who's with PLU now, was somebody that I worked with who came up and did meets.
Cool.
So and he did a really good job when he was doing meets and stuff coming up here. So I kind of shadowed him for the most part.
Yeah, that's definitely like one region that I'm not too familiar with. When I was kind of in my like heyday with
Mm,
when Larry Williams was kind of in his like between like 2014, 2015 to 2020 was kind of like when he was breaking all the
yeah,
records and everything. And a
yeah.
lot of the big meets were on the West Coast. A lot of big meets were in California, like the US Open and stuff like that. There's
Hmm.
a couple of, USPA meets that we kind of, competed in. Um, I did some stuff like in kind of Texas and Florida and like, primarily in the Northeast. But yeah, the North Dakota, kind of Midwest region outside of like, the Arnold and Ohio is not a
Hmm.
region that I partake in often. So I wasn't too familiar with that. So
Yeah, it's kind of a weird little area. That there's actually a very large powerlifting group community up this way. And what's really nice about it is that we're small enough to where pretty much everyone knows each other.
that's
Like
cool.
all the South Dakota lifters, the North Dakota lifters, and then even like the Minnesota as well, because they would come. There'd only be so many events, so we would see each other all at these events and stuff like that. So everyone really got pretty close and stuff. And then like even with like social media, that even kind of helped tie everyone together on like one platform.
So obviously, like since going from like the paper registration forms
Yeah.
to now, like from what I've seen, some of the meets that you were involved with are multi-platform, higher production. At least from what I've seen, like with the Lift Hard, Live Easy, it was
Mhm.
very, very well done. Live stream, I thought, and
Oh
especially
yeah, the live stream, he's amazing.
great,
He does a
really,
great
really,
job.
really nice
Yeah.
job. Because sometimes it's like, kind of like,
Oh yeah.
almost like let's,
Oh,
get our ducks in a row. But I thought that was really well done. So like, when did you start to like, I guess, up the production value?
um,
Like
yeah,
what
like okay,
was
like
the
our first
thought behind that?
meet that we started, kind of, getting involved would have been about 2019, I want to say. And that was with Al Alvarado. He came up here and um, the meat sold out like way faster than he expected. He was just like he didn't know what to expect in, Fargo, North Dakota either. And so he had all these like it's sold out months in advance. And so he's like, well, let's try and do something fun for this meet. And so he bought some flamethrowers. And there were just these little simple like canisters that you literally put a can of starting fluid in and you just push the button and so that was something that he started when he came up here, and we just continued to do it at our meets and stuff until, like, some cities the fire marshals aren't so
They're
happy
like,
about it. So like we were doing a meet here in Fargo, and somebody saw it and reported it, and they came back for like day two, and they literally sent the fire marshal, the fire truck, the whole shebang to make a show to come in and be like, hey, you can't run those. And I was just like, and at the time I'm like, oh, okay, that's fine. I ran out of started fluid yesterday. So day one got flames, day two didn't get flames. So but that was kind of where we first started with that. But then we kind of outgrew doing meets in the gyms. And then the problem with that was it's like, okay, well, now we need more equipment and stuff like that. So then it turned into buying equipment for a warm-up room, curtains, the backdrops, the banners, and all that kind of stuff.
yeah.
So
So do you have like, I guess, a trailer or storage unit? Like how, or do you have your own? Like, I'm just
yeah, yeah,
curious.
yeah. My wife and I, we ended up getting a 20-foot trailer to get everything and store it in. And yeah, it just got to the point like before we were renting, U-Hauls and stuff like that, and that was just such a pain to load the equipment in the U-Haul, do the meet, and then
Sure.
unload it again. And so now, like with a trailer, it's like do the meet, boom, boom, park it.
You have
So
kind of systems in place, because I do think that sometimes
yeah,
when they see someone might like see the live stream of like something like the Lift Hard Live Easy, or they might see clips of the WPPL Pro or something, and
mhm.
they may not realize like kind of what goes into that, and like
Oh yeah.
the financial commitment, the manpower, the setup, the breakdown.
Mhm.
So
Oh
for
yeah.
people that are maybe starting out, or maybe they're new meet directors and maybe they want to aspire to be involved in something like that, like what,
Mhm.
I guess, kind of in terms of communication, organization, like do you have like a regular kind of team? Do you have people in different regions that kind of help you with these events?
Yeah.
How does that kind of work?
Yeah, for the most part, a lot of the refs here are focused up in our area here, but we have a few actually that tested and stuff that are going to be they're closer to Ohio. They're like northern Ohio area, so we actually got some people on the ground now, which will help out big time this year. Otherwise, yeah, everybody flew in. From North Dakota last year. So I mean, it was one of the a travel meet to put on something to that extent. I mean,
Sure.
it takes a lot of manpower and I mean, and the financial side of just flying everybody in their motels and all that kind of stuff, and then renting the venue on top of it, and yeah. So
Sure. So, I'm not sure. So, I guess we can kind of go either one. I definitely want to talk about, how you guys got linked up with, Tanner and Tommy and
oh
Massonomics,
yeah,
like how that kind of came to fruition, and then
uh,
to talk about some of the specifics of the event, because it's very unique,
yeah,
not just in the theatrics and everything
mhm.
else, which was great, but also like the social events, the after
Oh yeah.
party, and the whole prelude, leading up to it. So tell me, you can kind of, be as detailed as you'd like.
Sure.
How did that
Um,
idea come?
yeah, so we were running a meet in Fargo, and it was a pretty big gym that we had. It was actually like two basketball court size, side by side. So we had plenty of room for like vendors and stuff like that. So we were reaching out to people, and I emailed Massonomics because they're just right down in South Dakota in
Sure.
Aberdeen, and I reached out to them about coming up and help, if they wanted to do a booth or set up a table that fall. And so we just were just emailing back and forth. But then that summer, I went down and competed in Rapid City, and I come walking in, for weigh-ins that morning, Friday, and I didn't know at the time that Tanner was sitting there already, and I'm wearing a Massonomic shirt, and he's just like, "Oh, nice shirt there," and I'm just like, "Hey, oh, thanks, well, and not making the connection. And he's just like, I made that shirt. And I'm like, oh, you're Tanner. So then we kind of got, talking to each other and stuff. Cause like I didn't know what he looked like from like YouTube videos or nothing like that. At the time I was not really into the podcast. It was more or less the apparel kind of stuff, like the Instagram and that stuff. So that was like the first time when me and Tanner met was it was a USPA meet down in Rapid City that we both were competing at. And then we just kind of hit it off from there. And then we linked up again in the fall because they came up and did a table with us. And then they came up and did a table, but then we also at the time had one of their sponsored athletes, who John Oldham, and then we also had Joe Sullivan and Briani come up, and they all, the three of them, did a seminar the weekend of the meet too.
Cool.
So that was kind of the first, Lincoln kind of getting together. Um, and then it was USPA stopped doing meets in South Dakota. And so then it was like kind of, well, we kind of want to fill the void kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so they reached out, and we kind of were, going back and forth about, doing a meet for South Dakota. And the question was like, okay, well, where are we going to do it at? because obviously, I mean, I don't know if you know or not, but Aberdeen's a pretty small, community for South Dakota.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, and compared to anywhere else as well. And so we were looking at maybe like the bigger cities like Sioux Falls or maybe Rapid City. And then we were like, well, they could get a venue pretty cheap, I think, in Aberdeen. So we went with the Aberdeen site. And it was funny because we were talking back and forth, and they're like, "Yeah, I think we can get like 20 people to come that we know." And I'm like, "Well, I'll advertise to, in North Dakota, and we get some North Dakota guys or whatever to come down, and yeah, we'll make it work." And so when we opened registration, they wanted to like give first shot to like the crew members that are like members of the podcast. And so we did that, and I'm looking at my email like once we opened registration, and it was like boom, 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 and I'm like texting Tanner. I'm like, it's already half full, and it's been like 30 minutes. And the meet ended up within like 2 days, like selling out. So, and it literally filled with all crew members, and these
Yeah.
guys are from all over the place. Like it's crazy because it's like I think it was like 26 states, and then we had a couple of Canadians come down too. So, and just the fact that it's like Aberdeen, which is really just funny in its own little self, is because it was like kind of like a Woodstock thing. It was the middle of nowhere, and just all these people just coming into town for this one powerlifting meet.
Yeah, well, I think that kind of shows you like the power of community and the power of like um it's not really about the place, it's about the people, you know.
Yeah, yeah,
That's
for
like
sure.
really something that I think in this day and age of like 24-hour gyms and everything is very convenient and everyone
Hmm.
it's like a lot of places have like I'd say like when we started lifting and stuff, it was, if you found a good power rack at a commercial gym, you were probably shoved in the corner and whatever. Now, like a lot of these gyms, they have nice equipment, they have good racks. They may not have your favorite
Hmm.
Eleiko calibrated plates, perhaps, but even a lot of these gyms,
Yeah.
they have calibrated plates, they have specialty bars, deadlift bars.
Hmm.
These things are becoming more common, but
Yeah.
what's less common is training and crews. What's less common is having workout partners that you actually kind of
Hmm.
hook in with. So I think for even if it's like an online community, the fact that these
Oh
guys
yeah.
are regularly communicating together, and they're friendly with one another, and then this is an
Mhm.
opportunity for them to kind of connect face to face. So, what was
Oh
like
yeah.
the first event like, and then how is it? Because obviously, I think like this past July was probably the biggest one by like a large margin in terms of two platforms, and so how does it
Oh
progress?
yeah.
What are some of the
Yeah.
differences in terms of um,
Um,
all the other like things like
s-
outside the
yeah, so the first year we did it, we just did the first year we just did one platform, 4 flights. And then like for that meet, we had this group out of Minnesota, they're called the Minnesota Department of Lifter Safety. And these guys do spotting and loading uh, for a lot of like the USA meets at the Arnold and stuff like that. I mean, so they traveled, and these guys are like really good, and like they're a pit crew, they're fast. So we brought those guys in because they're part of the crew as well.
Oh, cool.
So I mean, it's like everyone's connected somehow through Massonomics. So it's and so we'd run the meet. Um, Everyone comes in usually like Thursday, and so like there was like a little thing like Thursday night, we all met up at Pounders, which is like a little, bar and grill. And the first year, there's probably maybe like 15, 20 of us there. And then, so the next day's weigh-ins, and it was very interesting to see because we never see this at other meets where it's like all these people show up for the weigh-ins, but they're all hanging out, sitting over here talking, and like they're not going to leave because they're just there to hang out with and it it was very cool to see that community aspect of it, just even at weigh-ins, because everyone's just like they would see so and so and hugging each other, because some of these people, this was the first time they ever met. They've all just talked online and stuff like that. So then after weigh-ins were done for the day, they at Tanner's house, he had like a big barbecue and everybody's invited. And so everyone's, they're doing name tags. So like literally the whole aspect of you're gonna know people by the end of the night kind of thing. And if not, we're gonna force you together. So you're all here to eat and hang out anyways. And it's Aberdeen and you have nowhere else to go anyways. So it was pretty cool. They had this thing, and I want to say there's probably with lifters and refs and everybody all together. It's probably like 80 people the first year um, for it. So that was really cool. And then Saturday, we run the meet, do it like normal. But then Massonomics sets up an after party at another local bar that sponsored the event. And then again, everybody gets together and hangs out after the meet. So now you're getting, alcohol involved and everyone's kicking back and relaxed. And you know everyone a little bit more by Saturday night from Thursday. So it was really cool to see how everyone really came together. So
And then I guess it's obviously grown and grown and grown. So any like I guess differences or highlights from I guess
um
the third.
yeah, it was weird because like we talked about it and they were like, Tommy and Tanner with Mass Thomas, it was just like, wow, this went over really, really better than we expected. We might have to do it again. So it's just like, all right, well, we can let me know and we can make it. We can make it happen on my end. And then the second year, um, what did we? Oh yeah, we ran two platforms, and we had a strongman afterwards. So yeah, we had it. So it was one of those things where it's like, okay, well, we're going to start and we got to finish by this time. So it doesn't, turn into an all day crazy event. So it's like strongman can come in. So I want to say we ran uh two platforms, well, 45 and 45, and I think we were done and had the platforms moved by 2:30.
That's great.
So that way, I think strongman probably started a little after 3 or so, like that. So, and what was cool too, this was at the hockey arena in town, and it was one of those places like for a hockey arena, you kind of think if it's going to be cold. Well, in the summer, not so much. So everyone is like sweating and just miserable because of the heat and the humidity. But they at least had they were selling beer in the corner from they were opened up for the bar for us at least. So everyone's at least like, well, meet's over, and so they started drinking, and then they're hanging out to watch the strongman afterwards. So it was a really cool, event adding that into this. Now everyone's still there hanging out, and then after I think it was all said and done, we did powerlifting awards and strongman awards like at the end of the night kind of thing. And then we did the after party again, like we did before. And then the third year, this past year, I think we bumped it up to 4 flights on both platforms. And then I think they started probably about maybe 3:34. So I mean, it was a pretty boom, boom, boom kind of meet. Like one thing we were trying to do was we thought maybe like with the two platforms was, when one person comes out and squats, we'll let the attention be on him and just kind of rotate back
Right.
and forth.
Yeah, that's
And we tried it, and it was like, okay, this is going to take too long. So it was like, just go.
it's
So
hard. It's hard to. That's like probably like the only. Well, that's probably the main downside of like the
mhm,
multi-platform meet because it's so.
yeah,
So there was like one. There was a period of time where I was a little bit more involved with coaching lifters in like the USAPL, for example. There
yeah,
was one year I want to say it might have been 2017 actually, but in that
okay,
general time frame where the Nationals was in, I think Orlando, I believe.
okay.
And there was a point in time where I had like two girls on going at the same time
Oh,
on different
yeah,
platforms, and I'm trying to coach them, trying to watch what's going on.
mhm,
You know,
yeah,
one's getting a red light because her foot is not completely flat to the ground, and another it's like it was a little bit too much. So like I think I had like 20 lifters, and some of them were like going at the same time.
oh man,
So I was running around around a lot that weekend, but so that's like one of
yeah,
the things. And then as a spectator, obviously, if you know the person, you're going to watch them, but it's
mhm,
hard to kind of follow what's going on. But
yeah,
you do the best you can, and obviously, like, there's a demand for it, so sometimes you have to kind of pick and choose. And I think that
mhm,
in, in the vein of kind of getting everyone together for like the after party, the social stuff,
yeah,
uh, it's kind of a compromise, and you kind of do the best you can with something like that. And it's at least from my end, watching the live stream, and
mhm,
still like it seemed like it was very smooth. It was still, I was able to kind of follow along, pretty well the live stream.
okay,
Some of the live streams, like sometimes the commentators or whatever can be like a little bit, not really kind of adding to what's going on. I almost rather just watch it, but
mhm,
I thought it was very well done from what I remember, and it seemed like it was a good, experience for someone. And like I said, I've been kind of following along those meets, so it was just kind of cool to see, everything kind of come together, and I could see the
mhm.
progression, like, year to year, which was great. So, in terms of like, and then I did see like some people, the flames coming out for, their
Oh yeah.
the third deadlift, which is always it looked like they're like a video game character coming out or something like that. Like, is pretty
Oh yeah, and it was one of those things where like we did it on I think third attempts, and I was just like thinking back, I'm like we should definitely did it on first. Should have did it on first when they're not so pumped up because we had some lifters. I'm like, all right, when it's your name's called, come out, and we had like a little thing for them to stand on, and some of them were just in the zone, and boom, I went right to the platform. Like, okay, okay, so but.
yeah, it's
Other
like
than that, that was the only little thing. That was the first time we did that for entrances. Otherwise, we usually would have the flames over by like the platform. So when they would like do a lift, we would shoot them off and stuff. But yeah.
I thought it was a cool like little thing. It was just kind of like, some people you could tell they got into it.
Oh yeah.
They hit a little pose, and then they
Mhm.
kind of did their thing. And I think that's like also too, it's like, again, I've been compete 2026 will be my 20th year competing, 20th year coaching as well. And
Mhm.
uh, you should have fun with it. You know what I mean? It doesn't need to be. I think that's like kind
No.
of gets lost sometimes. It's like, yes, take it
Yeah.
seriously. Yes, go for your PRs, but like, have a
Mhm.
good time. It's okay to like, be a little silly or whatever. And
Yeah.
I think that at the end of the day, um, the memories that you make with your friends, lifting with your buddies, like that's going to be the
Oh
stuff
yeah.
that you remember more than anything else. And I
Mhm.
think I could see like,
I, I think that, and that's what's really cool about that meet too, is like you've been around them, from Friday or Thursday till through Saturday, and then like you're a little bit more loose and familiar with everybody because like even people who weren't crew members that got into the meet, um, they were hanging out with everyone too, and they never knew any of these people. So,
Yeah, really positive environment. So unless there's anything else you want to add,
mhm.
if you want to kind of get to the meet in Columbus, the pro.
Oh yeah,
So it's kind of interesting, and again, you could whatever details you want to divulge or not is fine because I know
yeah,
just over the years, calling. So we've when I was growing up, in powerlifting and even like kind of even as an athlete, because my middle school wrestling coach was a powerlifter. He
mhm.
showed me he exposed me to like Powerlifting USA, and
Yep,
he had like the Louis Simmons articles in the back, and now I'm like watching Chuck Vogelpohl on VHS, and it's just like that's just kind of like that was the era that I grew up in. I had like
mhm.
uh posters like of people like Matt Krozalowski like on in from some of the guys from Elite FTS, and that was just kind of like the people that I was getting information from and aspiring to be. And
Mhm.
so like the WPO, when it was at the Arnold, that was kind of like the equipped powerlifting Super Bowl, if
Yep,
you will. And then eventually
hmm
kind of like that got phased out. It was something with money, whatever. Then it's since come back, but then kind of like you had the Lex and Extreme guys, and Danny Day kind of came in, and for both on the equipped side and also on the Raw with Rap side,
hmm
I would say for a good like 10-year period, like that was like a premier meet, and then even up till so like 2020 was a really weird year because
Oh yeah,
it was
yep.
canceled. It was back
Then it
on.
wasn't,
It was
and then there was no
spectated.
crowd.
There
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
was no
I
crowd,
was there. I competed that year.
but there was a crowd. It was, but anyways, what I was really fortunate because at the time Larry Williams was he was still living in Dubai, so he flew in. We weren't sure. I'm like, just show up. We'll see what happens. Because he had a great prep, and we knew that like he was on
Mhm.
target. So thankfully, him and Julius Maddox, we had Tom Davis. There was a whole cast of characters.
Yep.
Also, I don't know if you remember Bama Burr, Stacy Burr.
hmm
So there was a
Yep.
bunch of world records that were broken, and most famous, Larry. That was
hmm
his third world record, breaking Eric Lillibridge's record. And actually, the Lillibridge family was like there witnessing it. So it was like
Yep.
it was just a very cool moment as a coach and as
hmm
a powerlifting fan to kind of see that like long-standing record get broken. And then kind of like
Yep.
since then, um, the years after that, kind of eventually they removed the qualifying requirement.
Yeah.
Still a great meet, but it doesn't again it doesn't hold the same in my opinion doesn't hold the
hmm
same weight that you kind of have like I think it was maybe last year or maybe it might have been last year where like you had the kind of like first time lifters with like really
Yeah.
intense guys and it kind of just didn't really mesh well in my opinion. So again,
No.
nothing against to what they
hmm
do or whatever, but I understand people got to make a buck, whatever. So anyways, that's been my experience with like meets at the Arnold. And then
Yeah.
I kind of saw that your meet was kind of in this around the same time frame. It looked like a good show, high production value. So can you just kind of tell us how that came about? How
Um.
it came to fruition?
Yeah. 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 So like when you're saying with the COVID year with the Arnold too, like uh when it was out in the main hallway, like when it was out there and it kind of had its own little area, I thought that was probably the best setup.
I really like that setup. Yeah, I really
And
like.
then like after that, shortly, they started moving into the expo. And then you got into the issue of like, okay, well, our warm up room is out there. And,
It was hard. I was in my squat.
yeah. So,
I was in my squat suit. I had to waddle to. It was not fun. To
oh, yeah. So it's one of those things where I'm like, I mean, I was raw and I'm just like, I don't know how anyone equipped is doing this, going back and forth. So, but, so like I said earlier, we ended up leaving USPA and we went XPC. Um, and I reached out to Dan because it was like, I was already doing his meets, usually every year at the Arnold, anyways. And so we got together, and then let's see, I want to say May of 2024, he reached out to us because he saw like how we did the Massonomics meet and stuff like that, and he reached out and asked if we would take over running the XPC events at the Arnold. And so I'm like, yeah, I'd love to, like so. We got to, working on things right away. My first thing was I was like, We didn't know yet what events were going to be on the Rogue stage. It's usually like the single lift stuff. And the idea I had was, well, what if we just did like a two very small flight pro event, like full power, and just do it like on a combo or something, easy to move. I'm like, Rogue is right there. I'm sure they'll throw a combo at us.
Right.
And so we started planning that, and then we wanted to bring back the qualifications, because and we were like, well, let's just go by dots. So we'll do a pro event. So we'll do 500 dots and up.
Something simple. Yeah.
Yeah. And so we started doing that, and then we put together invitations. The invitations had the QR code to go to the registration, all this kind of stuff, and um, we showed them to everybody, with Dan and everything. And then like late July, like as we're like the week I think we're doing the Massonomics meet, um, Keith puts out an email registration. He's just like, "Oh, all right, registration's open." And so me and my wife were like, "Well, what's this? This isn't the registration tied to the QR codes." I'm like, "What's going on?" And it was one of those things where it turned into he's like, "Oh, well, change of plan. Sorry." And we're like we already invited all these lifters. I'm like, and like some of these people are already signed up.
Yeah.
Like they're expecting
You have like a
a
roster
pro,
ready. Yeah.
yeah, like they're expecting a pro style event now. And so we're talking, and I'm like, well, we'll make it, we'll just run our event over here. That way we have stage, lights, the whole works, the production value behind this. And it turned into is just like, well, no, we can't have two XPC events going on. And I'm like, why not? USAPL has like 8 going on at the same time, in the expo. And we kind of got into it, and it was like, well, we're going to make this event happen with or without you. And so that's what it turned into. And I was just we were already kind of doing stuff with WPPL already. So it was just like, it was an easy switch. So like we already had a sanction and all that. So that's kind of where how WPPL Pro came from. And the first year, last year went over really well. We had uh, 16 lifters from like 16 different countries show up. So I mean, we had a really good international showing. The pro side, we had a really good showing of lifters over 500. Phil Herndon came in. He won last year.
Fantastic. A
Uh,
big fan. Someone in our region as well now. Yep.
yeah. He hit some big numbers, and he hit the raw squat
Yeah.
record for his weight class. I think he hit it twice for his second and his third. And then the female winner was Anya from Switzerland. So that was really cool. Just having the international
Yeah.
athletes and everybody involved. So, but what was funny was like we had some lifters that they were coaching other athletes over at the expo, and when they came over like for weigh-ins, they were looking around at the venue and they're like, how do they not know about this? They're like, what is this? And so there was just so much of kind of that wow factor just from the venue and everything and the production itself. So it was one of those things. So like soon as we finished last year, within a week or two, I mean, we were getting bombarded with people from overseas. Like, when can I sign up for next year? So, so I mean, we literally started working on year 2 already. So, and I think we probably, I want to say filled everything probably in August. So, I mean, a good at least 6 or so months out. So,
Very cool. Yeah,
mm-hmm.
like I said, there's depending on like what my schedule is, and
Mm-hmm.
I have some events in the works myself.
Okay.
Possibly a seminar, possibly coaching some people. So I'll if I'm able to check it out, I'd be would love to. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so one thing I think that's important, I think for people, and I think this is one of those things where when you've been in powerlifting for it's going to be like 2 decades for me. It's like sometimes people have a difference of opinion. Sometimes people have disagreements or falling outs and stuff. I think like having open conversation that is important. I think being direct and with what your goals are. So I'm curious, if you have thought about what the vision is for your meets, what your kind of goal is as a meet director. What is that?
Yeah.
Is it
Um, yeah, I mean, we're still running our local events up here. Like we just did one here in Minnesota just a couple weeks ago. And then um, we're going to still be doing those. And then we have some other WPPL people that are getting involved now from Ohio. So we kind of might start integrating them a little bit more with this event, kind of so they like, I mean, they'll still be involved, but they'll be a little bit more hands-on since they're on the ground there.
Cool.
But there's some other things that we're working on as well, like Nike sponsored last year's event. So we actually the bar, and then the Texas deadlift bar for deadlifts. Um, and oh, but Nike was involved, and so we got to talking with them, and our idea was to put together a Nike Pro, and because like I know ABS has been kind of ahead of the game on that right now, where they're using a power bar for some of their events, like they just did with the Reach Rumble. And so we've been talking with Nike about doing something similar with that as well. But we're looking at probably in Vegas.
Cool.
So
Yeah, I have like mixed
mhm.
opinions about those things. But I think that like if you're going to do like a one-off event, I think
Mhm.
that's kind of like how I would look at it. And it's one of those things where it's kind of like a challenge. But I know with myself, so like again, I kind of mentioned, I don't remember if I mentioned this to you or not, but so like my I always competed equipped primarily. That was my main
Yeah.
thing. So I've
Mhm.
squatted 900 pounds in competition. I've done 1,000 in training. I remember there was one time we actually had it was a lift with myself, Larry, and Stan. And Stan, for whatever reason, wanted to use a power bar. And I remember like I was squatted. The most I ever did on a power bar was like 750,
Yeah.
755. And I remember
Okay.
it was just like, you know,
Rip.
the hardest part was going down with it. It was just like, it was like the first and like last time. I'm like, okay, I'm like, this is why squat bars exist. But again,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's a challenge. It's one of those things. And the thing that's kind of cool
Hmm.
about that is, regardless of what you feel about it personally, whatever, doing the meet on a power bar is a cool way where you can someone like a Kyle Curvey, for example, so you can kind of get a
Hmm.
more direct comparison,
Yeah.
with the tested lifters, which is kind of cool. So then
Yeah.
it's not like, well, we use a deadlift bar, or well, it's like, well, you guys had the same, it was the same condition,
Yeah.
same equipment. So I think that's a kind of a cool, element, and it's just like another, it's a challenge, it's a different.
Yeah. See, and like I was actually just talking to I don't know if you know Nick Forte.
Mhm.
Yeah, I was actually just talking to him going back and forth because he did the Reach Rumble. And I was just like, so what are your thoughts? I'm like, power bar, or we do this event and we do, squat bar, and like that. And so we were kind of, talking the pros and cons and stuff. And I'm like, and I kind of brought up, about the whippiness of a power bar, because like our last meet here, we had a kid who was maybe 22, 23, do like 848, and that was on a Texas bar, and you could see
Still,
that, yeah. And I'm just like, I can't imagine what that would look like on a power bar. So it's one of those things. If you're getting lifters of that caliber
it starts to
and
get a little,
lifting that
yeah,
much,
I think at least I know for me, like when you start to get like north of 700 pounds and certainly 800
yeah,
pounds, and you also kind of see, but again, I think if it's like a one-off event and people know ahead of time and
hmm,
they're training on it, that's kind of how because I kind of I could see both sides of it, but I do like the idea of, so just as an example, and maybe this is a good segue because and I'm not sure, you may or may not have information on this, and if there's anything else that you want to kind of cover with the Columbus meet, feel free. But I did also notice that WPPL also has like some strict curl overseas and
yeah,
different
hmm,
regions. So that's something I've been kind of getting into more. And,
okay,
and what's really interesting, so in the United States here, there's really kind of two main bars, but for the most part, there's a gopher bar.
yep,
That's kind of the main bar that we use in competition, and the gopher bar has more aggressive
yep,
bends.
yep,
You're a little
yep,
bit more pronated. You can kind of get deep in there. It's a little bit more. So I kind of always use the analogy of um, using a gopher bar for strict curl is kind of like using like a kabuki bar or a deadlift bar for deadlifts, where if you
hmm,
understand the technique and you understand how to use the bar to your advantage, you could potentially, but it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to do more, but if you could like learn
hmm,
to use the bar to your advantage. And I do think it is a little bit safer because your arms are a little bit less exposed. You can kind of argue that, let's say, a
yep,
deadlift bar is a little bit safer because your lower back's going to be in a better position.
hmm,
You're not pulling, you're not, your back's not going to be as in much
Yeah.
flexion. And same thing with the squat bar. You're going to be more stable,
Hmm.
less whippy, and those sorts of things. So
Yeah.
recently, I did a meet. I did an APA meet, and the APA is more like old school, where they just use like a Hampton bar, which essentially is just like your normal easy bar with very like minimal bend.
Okay.
And I was a good like 15 pounds off my PR on the other bar, but it was a cool like challenge, and it was one of those things
Uh-huh.
like I'm gonna like try this meet on hard mode, and it's
Mhm.
not something if I'm trying to hit an all time PR or lift the absolute most weight. And I actually had more fun than I thought, and it was at the Mr. America Expo, and so it was cool. It was a small event, but it's kind of changed my outlook on it a little bit, where it's like that's not going to be my primary training modality. It's not going to be like how I'm going to
Yeah.
compete all the time. But I think in a one-off event, and if it's something, let's say these guys do it like once a year or whatever, um,
Hmm.
and it's anyways, it's just something where I think it's kind of fun where you change the variables a little bit. Like okay, like you're gonna have to walk out. It's on the power bar, knee sleeves only,
Hmm.
whatever. And then sometimes maybe another meet's a monolift with knee wraps with all the specialty bars, and you kind of you essentially have all the advantages
Yeah.
in your
Hmm.
favor. So I think it could be a cool thing, and it's one of those things where I think that even raw powerlifting, it's still so new. So we'll have to kind of see like how this it plays out in terms of injuries and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
that because I always think about just for the people like a Larry Wheels or the people like some of these guys that are squatting 800-900 pounds, and like what's the
Yeah.
consequence of using like
See,
a less
that's why I mean, I'm already pretty much leaning towards on like, if we do this, I think the aspect that we would do is like different from Columbus is we would do biggest total, kind of like what ABS did with their event. But I'm thinking specialty bars across the board, just because you're going to get those big lifts.
yes,
And like I said, I saw the whippiness of a, 848 on a Texas bar.
it's only
Like,
gonna
I'd
be
rather go with a little bit safer.
yeah. So I think
So,
it's good, but I think it's good to have these conversations because sometimes when you have not all meet directors are lifters. Not all meet, sometimes like, and it's like, it's great to
that
have the,
blows me away. That blows me. Yeah. I'm like,
sure, but it's great. Same thing with, but it's great to have these, and then you see this sometimes with these programming, like I call them programming wizards or programming
mhm,
nerds, where they might have all the textbook knowledge, but it's like, it's different. Like if you've had 1,000 pounds on your back, or if you know what I mean, it's just, you have a different
yeah.
appreciation for the risk
Hmm.
involved, what's going on in your body. So, anyways, I think one of the first things that we talked about when it comes to running a good meet is making sure the lifters are safe. And I think
Okay.
that's a really important thing that I think sometimes often
Hmm.
gets. I mean, all the fireworks, all that stuff is great, but like the safety, the
Right.
spotting, the crew on the platform,
Hmm.
so
Oh
so
yeah.
so important. So, like you said, so I don't know. Anyways, going back to the strict curl, I don't know if you guys have any interest, or if there's people like in your network that are like running meets, because I'm that's just something I'm just trying to just for my own knowledge,
Mhm.
as far as the events in your organization and anyone else that's kind of involved.
Yeah. No, we were looking at doing a local curling event a while back, and we just had trouble, getting it off the ground, kind of thing. Whereas like it was so new to the area, like
Sure.
because nobody's been doing them. So it's one of those things where like I'm the representative for WPPL for the US, and it's like I'd like to reach out and try and get a few more people involved, like someone who would
Sure.
like kind of even just take that on, and because it's one of those things where it's an event you can do where you can literally put all the equipment in your pickup,
Correct.
versus getting a trailer and doing all that kind of stuff. So,
There's that's kind of like what I like about it from both the event standpoint and also the
mhm.
athlete standpoint. So again, I kind of mentioned like for me, I'm getting a little bit older, like 20
Yeah.
years. For me to like do a full meet at this stage in the game, the mileage I have, it's a lot. It's a lot to prep, and then it's
Oh
like,
yeah.
and then like, what happens if I like slip with 800 pounds? What what I mean? It's just so like
Mhm.
something like a strict curl. It's like the mental bandwidth it takes, and like the anxiety like of when you're
Mhm.
getting under a big squat, it's like you got to like be like
Oh
really on
yeah.
point for that, and you still should be on point for a heavy strict curl too. But like as far as the danger factor is like way down, so.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it could be a little bit, and I think for something like a lift hard, live easy, or something like that, where it's just kind of like a one-off thing where I'm just, lifting my bicep work with my buddies. I think something like that can like go well, where it's again, it's something where it's just like maybe a one-off event or an extra thing, and
Hmm.
So if anyone in your organization ever like wants to, bounce ideas, or because I've been basically, I just started doing the strict curl division for RPS, and it's
Okay.
starting to kind of take off, and we're getting more
Yeah.
and more states involved. We're going to have so right now we have them in New York, Delaware are the ones I run. We're going to have one in Vermont,
Okay.
and a couple other people are going to be jumping on board, I think, in Pennsylvania. And then I'm going to be going to, I'm not sure if you're familiar with Home Gym Con. I know like the Massonomics
Yep.
last
Oh
year.
yeah.
But we're going to be running our first meet in Kentucky there. Uh,
Okay.
One of my buddies is in Cincinnati. So, anyways, my thing, I want to make it also like lifting and competitions accessible for people,
Hmm.
and it's just another option. Or if it's maybe it's like a side quest thing where like, okay, I'm going to take a break from powerlifting for a little bit, but I can kind of do this fun thing, and it's like pretty like low pressure and maybe like not as much effort. So I just wanted to, I was just kind of curious because I have seen, I think it might have been one of the associates overseas. I think his maybe
Yeah.
his name is Alex something.
Yep. Yep.
So Alex was he was promoting some of the, I think, the European events or something. And
Mhm.
um, anyways, I saw some more curl events from WPPL pop up, but they were outside of the US. So
Yeah, yeah, they do. They do. They're pretty active overseas, especially with the strict curl and the other event they do. I've seen it over in, like a lot of the big Russian events is hip thrust competitions.
it's so like it's funny that
Yeah,
also kind of freaks me out, but it's like, just like 1,000 pounds on your pelvis, or but it's like, but
yeah, yeah.
people are doing some crazy weights. But I do want to be kind of mindful of your time. I do appreciate it, and I think that again for me, like I'm always like to learn what other people are doing, and also again I want to highlight like outside of the production value, and it seems like you're really for the lifters, which I appreciate. I think especially with like the Massonomics events, like really making it a community thing. And I think that's like something where I think that more people should emphasize that. And I think that will also get the lifters coming back and stay involved with lifting, because ultimately that's what we want. We want them to keep lifting, keep setting PRs, and even if you're at a point where maybe you're kind of maybe past your prime or whatever you want to call it, being able to maintain strength, set some different goals, maybe goals in a different weight class or a different age category. This is something you can kind of do, for a long time. So, is there anything else that you kind of wanted to add, or if maybe
Um, yeah, I totally like blew it over my head was with like the March event that we're doing, the Pro in Columbus. We just got asked to because it filled up so fast, and we had a lot of European lifters and overseas lifters that weren't able to get visas and get their travel and stuff arranged. And so we had a lot of people in Europe still that wanted to come, but it already filled up. So Alex reached out to us, and they're like, "Well, why not put a pro event on here in Europe?" And so they found an event and a place to do it in France. And so we're basically going over and we're going to mirror exactly what we're doing in Columbus, in France this summer. So, and so we already opened that. We started, doing invites and stuff like that. So it's kind of it'll be a little different, it's from traveling from here to Columbus versus
sure.
going to Europe to run a meet. So,
Cool, man. Well, I appreciate your time. Where can people find you if your Instagram website?
yeah, Instagram is just Stensland Powerlifting or WPPL USA, and then our website is just stenslandpowerlifting.com. So,
All right, man. Well, guys, if you enjoyed the podcast, please give it a 5-star review. It helps other people find us. You can definitely check out the links in the description and give Dave a follow. Thank you guys so much for listening. Until next time, stay strong, and we'll see you soon.